Alright people, today I'm going to talk to you guys about one of the most unique fish you can keep in the aquarium hobby, and that is the freshwater moray eel. The scientific name is Gymnothorax polyuranodon, and I've had two of them for several years now. I got my first one in 2022, her name is Lily, and I've got my second one at the start of this year. So yeah, we're going to cover many things today guys. I'm going to give you my full experience with these moray eels, what their behavior is like, what they eat, some fun facts, tank setup, the environments that they feel comfortable in, pretty much everything that you need to know if you would like to keep a freshwater moray eel yourself. Now, before buying my first one, I actually already knew about them. When I first rejoined the hobby in 2018, one of the first things that I've done is start doing some research on the things that I can keep. And I remember, just as a joke, I typed in a freshwater moray eel on YouTube, and that's when the tiger moray eel popped up. Yeah, I remember as soon as I saw them, I thought, yo, one day I'm definitely gonna keep one. And then people, around a year later, I was in Wholesale Tropicals, which used to be my local fish store. Unfortunately, they've closed down now, but one thing that was special about Wholesale Tropicals is they've always had really rare fish. Like, their selection was absolutely crazy. And then in 2022, whilst I was walking around there, just by chance, I happened to see their freshwater moray eels, and yeah, I just had to grab one, man. It was the most expensive fish that I've bought by far during that point. I think before I bought my first moray eel, the most I spent on a fish was like £30 or something, and yeah, my moray eel cost me about 120, so it was a big jump up, but it was so worth it, man. It was immediately the most unique fish in my aquarium. Now, the crazy thing with these eels is many people actually believe that they're brackish species, and that's because if you Google freshwater moray eel, the first one that actually pops up is usually, or it used to be, the Indian mud moray. However, when you do some deeper research and you actually look into the Gymnothorax polyuranodon instead of the Gymnothorax tile, yeah, the Gymnothorax polyuranodon is actually fully freshwater. My first one I've had for over 3 years now. My second one is coming up to a year, and they've been living in freshwater their entire life. And once they've fully settled in, they will swim around the tank and that. But at the start, for like the first few weeks, my moray eel did hide away. And the worst thing is, she wasn't even eating. It took at least 2 weeks before she finally started eating. So if you decide to get a moray eel yourself, just keep that in mind and don't be too worried if they don't eat straight away. Now, I made a whole video on how I got my moray eel to eat, but it is a bit old, so I will make an updated version of it. But making a long story short, the way I done it is by dimming the lights in my aquarium, because moray eels are nocturnal. That made her feel much more comfortable. And then I just tried out loads of different foods, and she did reject pretty much everything until I tried out bloodworms. And then yeah, from there she just gradually started moving up to other foods. After bloodworms, I tried out earthworms, which she enjoyed as well, and then eventually she started eating shrimps. And yeah, nowadays she pretty much eats everything. Now, here's the funny thing, people. When it comes to feeding, it really comes down to the eel itself as well, because every animal is different and they all have their own personalities. So for example, Lily, my first moray eel, only eats pure protein food like bloodworms, earthworms, shrimps, and all of that. However, Lucci, my newer moray eel, he also eats dry food. He loves the carnival sinking pellets, and I'm pretty sure I've also seen him eat the Tetra multicolor crisp. So that alone shows you there that you can have two of the same species but have two completely different personalities. Lily is a very picky eater, whereas Lucci pretty much eats anything that you put into the tank. And yeah, I guess this can bring us to the next section, which is the personality and behavior. Yeah, guys, it can be very different depending on your personal eel. Before I got Lucci, my second moray eel, I would have said that moray eels can be very shy and they can take a really long time to start eating and things of that nature. But Lucci pretty much disproved all of that. Like, Lucci started eating pretty much straight away. I think maybe for the first day or two he didn't, but once he settled, he started eating like crazy. Also, in the way they swim about, like, Lucci swims around the whole tank, on the surface, in the middle, always out and about and exploring, whereas Lily, she likes to hide away in her caves and does come out occasionally, but most of the time she does like to chill in her cave. Having said that, during feeding time she gets really active, of course, and she comes out with everyone else. But yeah, the reason I'm mentioning it is because they do have very different personalities, and you could get a moray eel today and yours could act completely different to the two that I have. So definitely keep that in mind, guys. Now, whilst we're talking about feeding as well, there is this really cool thing you can do with moray eels, which is you can hand feed them. Literally, guys, and it is the most rewarding thing. Now, I should warn you guys, there is a small chance that your moray eel could accidentally bite you if you're hand feeding them. It has actually happened to me before. I've done a whole video on testing whether my moray eel would bite me or not, and I've done loads of experiments where I put my my hand in front of her face and everything, and she did not do anything. She was completely humble. However, during that same video, when I decided to hand feed her now, I don't know how, but she somehow misjudged it and actually caught my thumb. And it didn't really hurt or anything, but it did show me that sometimes they can misjudge their strike and they can accidentally catch you. So do keep that in mind. But generally speaking, if you want to hand feed your moray eels, or if you want to hand feed anything, the way you want to start off is with tongs. I don't have any tongs here right now, they're downstairs, but you use your tongs and you kind of take the food and put it in front of their face, and you kind of want to get them used to getting the food in front of them and them eating from the tongs. It kind of puts it in their heads that they're gonna get the food presented to them and then they can eat it. And yeah, the way I done it, I started off with bloodworms. So with bloodworms, I kept it strictly just tongs. I never held them or anything. But then eventually when I moved on to earthworms, I still used the tongs, but every now and then I would also try out with my hand, and it did work, guys. My eel would eat the worms from my hand. And yeah, I'm fairly confident the reason she done that is because she was already used to eating from tongs. So yeah, I know I was rambling for a little bit, but long story short, guys, if you want to hand feed your moray eels, you can definitely do that. Now guys, before we carry on, if you want to see more videos like this every single week, then please remember to like and subscribe. I'm really trying to hit that 10,000 subscriber milestone. So please guys, if you could help me out, I would appreciate that so much. Now, let's talk a little bit about the tank setup and the environment in general. So moray eels, they are nocturnal species and they like hiding spots. So you do want to make sure that you have loads of caves, whether they're fake caves or natural caves that you've created by putting hardscape together. It doesn't really matter. You just want to make sure that there are places where the moray eel can hide away. It will definitely help them settle in a lot faster at the start. And like I mentioned, once they've actually settled in, they will come out and explore. But you just need to give them that time to really settle into their aquarium, because moray eels are very intelligent and the move from when you buy them into your aquarium can be a bit stressful. Now you can also have plants with moray eels, but I should mention you want to plant the plants before you get your moray eel. The reason is moray eels do like to explore their environment, especially at night, and if you have freshly planted plants in your aquarium, the moray eel will uproot them. However, if you've got some deep rooted plants in your aquarium, then you should be fine. And yeah guys, I can tell you right now, seeing the moray eels along plants and everything, it just it's such a mesmerizing display. It looks so much cooler than having a moray eel in a bare tank with just a few rocks. So yeah, I definitely highly recommend adding plants to your setup because it works perfectly fine. And on top of that, if you have loads of plants, they should shade some of the light, creating some shaded areas in your aquarium, which once again should encourage the moray eel to come out more. Now I should also mention that moray eels are scaleless, so they can get injuries from sharp rocks and things like that. So do keep that in mind. Don't have any sharp rocks anywhere because they do glide around and move along hardscape. So if you have any sharp edges, it could definitely injure them. Now let's talk about tank mates, and guys, this is where it gets truly fascinating. Now when I first got my freshwater moray eel and I done some research, pretty much every source of information said you should keep them in a species only tank. They will go after everything in the aquarium and things of that nature. However, I remembered, and guys, honestly, my logic in that moment wasn't really the best, but I had this memory from my childhood when I used to go to Frankfurt Zoo, and in their aquarium house they had this big enclosure that had a huge moray eel. By the way, that moray eel was not there anymore, but it was there when I was a kid. And in that tank they had loads of other fish as well, and the moray eel never went after any of them. It just chilled in its own cave. So yeah, based on that experience, I wanted to experiment with my moray eel and see whether she would be fine in a community setting. And guys, I was so pleasantly surprised. When I first added my freshwater moray eel into the Roma 200, she was in there with Corridoras, Synodontis petricolus, and even Tetras, and she didn't touch any of them. As a matter of fact, my freshwater moray eels are very humble, and it is really surprising considering that they are pure predators. And yeah guys, I can't lie, when I first added my freshwater moray eel into my aquarium, I got quite a few comments and messages from people telling me, oh, what you're doing is wrong, it's gonna go after all of your fish and everything like that. But guys, it worked out perfectly, man. Both my moray eels are currently in my Roma 240 with loads of other fish, and I've never gone after any of them. So it really does show you that sometimes it is okay to experiment. Having said that, guys, it could have gone wrong as well, so do keep that in mind. If you decide to try your moray eels out in a community aquarium, there's always a chance that you get a particularly aggressive one that goes after all of the fish. But yeah, based on my personal experience, freshwater moray eels are very humble humble, and I've successfully kept them in community setups for multiple years now. Now, of course, there are some levels to this, guys. Like, for example, I don't think I can keep cardinal tetras with my freshwater moray eels because they are literally snack sized. So when I say you can keep them in a community setting, I mean with fish that are similar sizes to their heads, basically meaning that they can't swallow them whole. Now, in regards of compatibility with their own species, my two freshwater moray eels seem to get along fine. There is a bit of nibbling here and there every now and then when it's feeding time and, you know, they try to assert dominance over their areas or whatnot. However, the rest of the time they do their own thing, and I've seen them chill together many times as well. They do seem to be very social and don't mind each other's companies. However, guys, I've also heard of other people keeping freshwater moray eels and they tried to keep them together and it ended up with the two eels fighting and they had to separate them. So once again, keep that in mind. Every animal is different, and just because I've had this experience with my two doesn't mean you will have that same experience. And any experiments that you do, you should always have a backup plan, like a backup aquarium where you can quarantine one of the eels if it doesn't work out. But yeah, once again, in my personal experience though, my two moray eels are getting along perfectly fine. But I should also mention, once my really big aquarium gets here, which should be here soon hopefully, I will probably take one of them, maybe Lucci because he's the bigger one, and move them to the bigger aquarium just so they both have their own territories and don't need to fight over food and that. Alright, now let's talk about some of the myths that people believe about these freshwater moray eels. And one of the biggest ones is, in what kind of water do they belong to? Because many people believe that these tiger moray eels should be in brackish water or salt water. Now, from what I understand is they can handle salt, but the tiger moray eel or the Gymnothorax polyuranodon is the only true freshwater moray eel as far as I know, meaning they are the only species that are completely happy in freshwater. Every other species that I know of are either brackish species or saltwater. So yeah, it's kind of a semi-myth, because I do get quite a few comments in my videos where I talk about my freshwater moray eels telling me that they're brackish and that. However, when I start asking them more questions, it turns out they're talking about the Gymnothorax tile. So yeah, that's why I said it's a semi-myth, because all other moray eels are either brackish or saltwater. So yeah, just make sure that you get the right one for your freshwater setup. The other myth I've also already touched on, which is that they are super aggressive. Once again, guys, they could be, but in my personal experience, they have been so humble with all of the other fish and myself. I mean, even with the whole biting thing, the only time I've ever been bitten is accidentally by my moray eel when I was hand feeding, but every other time I've had my hands near them, they don't do anything compared to my wolfish where I put my finger inside and she literally tried to bite it off. So yeah, that's another myth. These freshwater moray eels are not that aggressive, although I'm sure there are some individual specimens which probably are. But yeah, those are the only real myths that people talk about when it comes to the moray eels. But here are some things that are definitely true that you should definitely listen to. And one of them is moray eels are escape artists. They will escape. You need a tight fitting lid, making sure that there's no gaps in that aquarium. Even the holes in the back where the cables come through, personally, I've stuffed some sponge in there to make sure that they don't escape that way. And if you have a particularly young one, you also want to make sure that you cover the intake or outtake of your filters. Now, when I first got my first moray eel, she actually tried to go inside of the output of my canister filter, and I actually had to block it off for a little bit until she got a bit bigger and she was too big to actually get inside. I've also received comments of other people who have kept freshwater moray eels who said their moray eels completely vanished and then they ended up finding them inside of their canister filters or their sumps. So yeah, guys, moray eels and most eel-like fish are escape artists, so you definitely want to keep a tight lid. That is not some kind of myth. Definitely listen to that. The other thing you definitely need to be aware of as well is these eels, although they are smaller than your average marine moray eel, they do still grow quite big. My two that I have right now are in my Roma 240, which is 240 liters, but most importantly, the length is about 4 foot, which gives them enough space to actually stretch out and explore the whole tank. And yeah, that is probably the bare minimum that you want. But like I already mentioned, I am setting up a bigger aquarium soon, and my biggest moray eel is going to go in there to give them that extra space. So yeah, guys, keep that in mind. These moray eels do grow quite big and you will definitely need a bigger tank for them. Like I said, my Roma 240, which is around 4 foot in length, is probably the bare minimum you want to go for. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is their price, because the one thing about these freshwater moray eels are but yeah, they are really pricey, man. I spent about £120 on my first moray eel, and the second one I think was about 125 or 130. Actually, it may have been 150. I don't know. But yeah, guys, they can be very pricey. So I would highly recommend only going for a freshwater moray eel once you've got a decent amount of experience with keeping fish, because the last thing that you want is buy something this expensive and then you lose it due to something like, I don't know, an ammonia spike or something. Like, guys, when I think about the time when I bought my first moray eel, like I mentioned, I'm pretty sure I already mentioned this, but it was a big jump off how much I usually spent on fish. Like, the most expensive fish I bought before that was around £40, and I remember I was in the shop for like a good hour just trying to decide. But I can say right now, it was one of the best decisions I've ever made. They are, in my personal opinion, definitely worth the money. Now guys, freshwater moray eels are incredible, and I've actually received so many different questions about them over the past 3 years that I've kept them, and I've actually made a video answering all of those questions. So if you would like to see that, then click right here.